Hi, Dashers. We had a really difficult time collaborating in our lab, so I didn't get to answer as many questions as I usually would. So I thought I would sort of do a quick overview that would help you get going on your lab report. First of all, let me show you where everything that you need is located. So if you go to the topics and go in Unit 1, there is the lab report template, which is pretty empty, but it does have the headings there for you and the rubric. And then there is the lab itself, which has all the directions and the formulas. And then there's a document we haven't looked at yet called the lab report requirements that we will look at together the next time we meet. To check over your work, but you are welcome to look at it ahead of time. It should be pretty similar to what you did in chemistry. So let's look at the lab itself and go through a few things. Here you can see that your classmates were calculating the accepted period. And I want you to know that when I say accepted, that can also refer to the known. So when I say accepted, that also means the known value that you will need later when you calculate percent error. Okay, so you're going to calculate that one time. It shows up like a bunch of different places on this document, so I'm sorry if that's confusing. Then you're going to write your procedure. When you do it on the lab report, it will be in past tense. When you included in that procedure, you're going to need to talk about how you calculate accuracy, not the actual numbers, but how you calculated it. And it's actually just written down there below in the table, but this is percent error. I mean, technically it's inaccuracy that we calculate when we get our percent error, but that is a way of knowing how accurate we are. And then if you looked at your notes, you remembered that the way we get precision for a set of measurements is we did in our practice sheet 2 times the standard deviation of the trials. Okay, so you're going to need to get your calculator, or there are some online calculators that will get standard deviation for you. And then once you get it, you're going to take that number and multiply it by 2. That's what goes in this box. So you will calculate that for the whole set, okay? Also, when there's a box in this data table, that means the big box means there's only one value that goes in the big box. I put, little boxes to hold those trial data pieces, but there is only one number that goes in each of these large boxes. So you only need to calculate 2 times standard deviation once, and that's going to be like a plus or minus some number, and you're going to round it to the hundreds place, okay? Like it's going to be hopefully 0 point something something, okay? And then there's only going to be one number that goes here, and you're going to use the known, the from above. So you're going to use this T and your average, from the measured column in order to calculate that. Okay, and you have the formula for percent error in your notes. Okay, and then Um, you can, I mean, you don't, as you're making your lab report, you're showing your work, you're trying your best to type it. So that's why this is in here twice. I mean, you're filling it in the table, but you're also showing your work. Okay, and you're doing that all again for part 2. And then you're summarizing the procedure. And if you look down below in the rubric, you'll see some guidelines, and I'll show you the guidelines in the report requirements as well. And then there are some things to consider here. Please talk to your whole lab group about that, and don't just leave one girl in charge of that and never look at her answers. Help her with it so that she doesn't get it wrong and then she feels bad about it later. Okay? The biggest mistake I would say that people make is they don't read the little reminders in this rubric. Okay? The reason I put them there is they're the most common things that people get wrong. So then I tend to put the little reminders in here. So please read them. Okay? And then the other thing I want to point out, if you're having trouble knowing what goes in each section, is you can look at that document called Lab Report Requirements. So this is a more general document that you would use like all year long. And so like it has an example of a procedure. Okay? It has example of how to type your calculations. We don't have any graphs in this lab, so like ignore that part. It has an example of a conclusion. Notice how short it is. And for this lab, what's our claim? You know, this wasn't really a lab where you had a hypothesis, right? So you're going to have to say which procedure was more accurate and which is more precise. Was one both more accurate and more precise, or was one like your stopwatch way more accurate and the photo gate more precise, you know? And then give a reasoning why. So this has an explanation of each section of a lab report. Okay. All right. So I just want to remind you that you should look at the rubric. That is going to give you hints. And then, of course, on Friday, I can answer more questions that I didn't answer in this video. Okay.